Okay, thank you. Now this one's going to be, it looks like slide number 11 under the body PowerPoint, and this is going to cover ways to support the body. So let's imagine that you're writing your speech and you find that you're having a hard time. Maybe it is main point two that you're having a hard time coming up with ideas. Well, remember what I said earlier. If you're having a hard time with the main point, maybe it's because you chose the wrong main point. So like brainstorm a different main point. But let's note that you've got a really good idea of what you want to do underneath main point two, but you just need a couple of more things. So what do you do once you're into the body? How do you get that information in there? Just really quickly, think about maybe putting in some expert anecdotes that are in there. I do teach you the statistic formula. The statistic formula is where you state a statistic, break that statistic down in some way, and then tell a story related to it, or state, sell, story. State, sell, story. So state the statistic. 7 out of 10 people struggle with soda addiction. That's a B. I just made that statistic up. It's not true. 7 out of 10 people struggle with soda addiction. Now sell. So that would mean in the United States, 350 million people live in the United States. That means over 210 million people are struggling with soda addiction. So you take a number and you break it down in some way. You sell the story to make it meaningful to people. That's step 2, sell. Story. For example, myself, I found myself actually about 4 years ago, I was on average drinking 64 ounces of soda every day, right? So tell a story related to that in some way. So it's 3 steps to make the statistics more powerful. State the stat, sell the stat, tell a story related to the stat, or state the stat, break it down in a meaningful way, and then tell a story related to it. That's that 3-step process. You can put a quotation somewhere in the body of your speech to help give it a little bit more power. Definitions, they tend to be a little bit stale, a little bit dry, but sometimes we need definitions. So for example, if we're talking about something like taxes, we're going to need a definition on whether that's sales tax, whether that's income tax, whether that's like a tariff type tax. So you need to break down exactly what the definition of your particular word might be. So that can be useful. Analogies and comparisons. So if something's really complicated, you might compare that complicated thing to something else. So years ago, a student gave a speech on the main parts to a computer, and they used the analogy of like shipping products. So they talked about how one would be like a dispatcher, that's like the CPU that gives the commands, and then another would be like the freeway, and that was like the actual motherboard itself on how many lanes would be able to be carried underneath that, and then product, so that would be like the memory, how much was able to be stored in the different warehouses and stuff. So taking some kind of complicated idea and comparing it to something else. So those are some examples how you might start to fluff up the body of your speech. Expert testimony, using statistics in the statistic formula way I described, quotations, definitions, or analogy and comparison. All right, so that's the way to support the body.